Hello, everyone. We're just going to give it a second to let the waiting room clear. Please make sure you're muted as you enter. And for those presenting, please make sure your video and audio are working. All right, we're going to get started. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board, the BCB. Today is February 11th, 2026. Today's hearing is being conducted pursuant to amendments to the open meeting law. This is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review some procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Joyce, Chair of the Boston Cannabis Board, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Commissioners Lisa Holmes, Commissioner Jack Henslaw, Commissioner Sonal Gandhi, Commissioner Ramon Soto, and Commissioner John Smith.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. My name is Jasmine Nguyen, and I am the Boston Cannabis Board Manager. We are also joined by Luke Santhouse, who is our Cannabis Licensing Specialist. I will begin by calling each item in the order they appear on our agenda. We have 3 amendments to already approved licenses and 2 new license applications. Each amendment application will have 5 minutes to present to the BCB, and the new applications will have 10 minutes to present, followed by questions and comments from the board members. We will then take public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives, followed by the general public. If you wish to testify, please sign up via the link that will be put in the chat. If you have already signed up, you don't have to do it again. Additionally, you may use the chat function to request to testify as well. Please wait until the matter in which you'd like to speak about is called. Do not use the chat function to give testimony. It will not be considered. Please state your full name, address, and any affiliation while you're giving testimony. Testimony will be limited to 2 minutes, at which time you would be muted. Additional testimony may be submitted in writing to cannabisboard@boston.gov. The record will be kept open until Monday, February 16th at 5 p.m. The BCB does not give any more weight to spoken testimony than it does written testimony. All right, we'll begin with our amendment applications. The following 3 amendments are related. They share the same representation and they're requesting the same changes. So I'm going to read all 3 into the record and then we'll proceed with the presentation. So the licensee is Herber C3 Dorchester LLC, doing business as High Profile Bodega. The license premise is 43 Freeport Street in Dorchester. The license type is a marijuana retail license. The second license is Massachusetts Citizens for Social Equity LLC, doing business as High Profile Bodega. The license premise is 561 Dudley Street in Dorchester. The license type is a marijuana retail license. And the third application is from Massachusetts Citizens of Social Equity LLC, doing business as High Profile Bodega. The license premise is 3995 to 3997 Washington Street in Rosendale, and the license type is a marijuana retail license. All 3 are requesting a change of ownership interest. The licensee is seeking board approval for an approved employee stock ownership transfer, in which 100% of the equity ownership of C3 Industries, Inc., which is 49% owner of the license, will be transferred to a newly formed ESOP trust. The transaction does not affect the 51% majority ownership held by Chavez Retail Holdings, LLC. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Thank you, Jasmine. Good afternoon. Daniel Glissman, here on behalf of the applicants.
Great. You may begin, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, and good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Nice to be before you all this afternoon. Thank you very much for having us. As noted, my name is Dan Glissman. I'm an attorney with Prince Lavelle Ty, here on behalf of my clients, Herba C3 Dorchester LLC and Massachusetts Citizens for Social Equity LLC, in connection with our request for the proposed change in ownership of the non-Boston equity ownership of these entities. As Jasmine noted, the applicant is seeking approval of the transfer of the 49% ownership currently held by C3 Industries, Inc., to be transferred into an employee stock ownership trust, commonly referred to or known as an ESOP trust. Notably, again, as Jasmine mentioned, there's no changes to the day-to-day operations of the facilities affected by this request, and Mr. Chavez, through his LLC, will remain the 51% owner of all of these licenses. This is a corporate restructuring strategy, one that has been implemented by a few other licenses over the last few years in Massachusetts, and is becoming somewhat more of a popular strategy amongst cannabis establishments. And C3 Industries Inc. is implementing this not only in Massachusetts, but across its entire portfolio. And I'm joined today by Ian Gross, the General Counsel for C3 Industries Inc., who can answer any more detailed questions or specific questions that you may have on the ESOP itself. And beyond that, we don't have any other presentation. So again, thank you all very much for your time today. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for this applicant?
I don't, but I might after the other commissioners.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Holmes, yep.
I do, and it's basically the 49%. So all the employees of the firm are going to basically be the partners in that 49%, and they share in. Do they share in the profits?
Sure, I can take this. So
Go ahead, Ian. Thank you.
in good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for having us here. So C3 right now is owned by a large group of private shareholders and investors. Subject to receipt of regulatory approvals, those shares will be sold to the trust, who holds the shares for the benefit of eligible employees. So it's really similar to a 401k plan,
Okay.
where it's heavily regulated by the IRS, by ERISA, and it's essentially the employees, the eligible employees pursuant to our plan, will have interest that vests over time. That's really like a contingent interest in a retirement account. And this is something that it's good for the company. It's good for the employees. They don't have to contribute any money to it. It's tax deferred. And studies have shown historically over time that I think something along the lines of 4 employee retirement savings go up by 4x if they participate in an ESOP, and it aligns our incentives. It helps us attract and retain new talent, which is always important in competitive markets like Boston and the other 7 states we're in.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that information.
My pleasure.
Any other? Commissioner Smith?
Thanks, Jasmine. So ESOPs are like an employee-owned ownership, right? So I understand it from that perspective. Employee-owned industries and companies have used ESOPs. And what would be the benefit? Can just elucidating a little bit more. So sometimes that helps in terms of providing higher wages and, deeper retirement savings for employees. Are there any other benefits here to the employees? And it's directly for the employees, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I think those are the benefits. It's in addition to all the benefits we already have for our employees. We pay living wages, we have good benefits, we have training and education. In addition to that, there's now it's essentially an interest in a retirement account that vests over time, but which they don't actually, while you're still employed with the company, you don't receive any funds from it. It's when you depart, it's essentially rolled over the amount that's vested into a retirement account, which is very tax efficient for employees, and they don't have to give anything to get this other than continuous service.
And is that vested over a certain amount of time? Like if you were there for 6 weeks versus 6 years or something?
That's
What's
a great
the time?
question. Yes, it is. If it vests over time to incentivize long tenure and continuity. So it's something that if you've been here for a certain amount of time, that will be factored in, but your relative portion of the pool will go up. It'll vest over time as you remain employed as an eligible employee.
Okay. You list in the paper, in the items you sent over, a whole slew of like passive investors. So Brian Chavez would get 51%, and some folks in Ann Arbor and Miami, and who's getting 4%, who's getting 6%. Um, are they part of the 49%? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. And just to clarify, prior to the transaction, Brian Chavez owns 51% of all the two licensed entities. After the transaction, he still owns 51% of the licensed entities. So he's a majority owner entitled to a majority of the economics from these stores. It's only impacting C3. Now, the folks that we showed in the ownership tables, those are right now the private investors. They will no longer be owners once we close this transaction. They will all be bought out and cashed out under the terms of our agreement, and the only owners will be the employees who vest over time. Right now, we have about, I'd say, 940 employees, give or take, and we're still developing assets in a number of our states, so that will grow. So there won't be really large owners. It will be spread among a larger pool of people.
Thank
And
you.
only, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry for
No, go
interrupting.
ahead, go ahead. No,
To be clear, too, only eligible employees may participate in the ESOP plan. If they are not an employee, there are no longer any private investors.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kinsler?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm far from an expert on company structures and anything along those lines. With the 49% ownership, does it come with like a representative who would sit on like the board for the company in terms of decision making, or is that all just like entirely held by the Mr. Chavez?
So I sent in structure charts for pre and post closing. It's a little bit easier if you can see those. So at the entity level, the governance and management is not changing. So MCSE and IRBA, there's two managers right now, Brian Chavez and Encore Runta, who's our CEO. He's going to be the CEO going forward. The folks who manage the actual entity are Brian and Encore. So the day-to-day governance and operation at the subsidiary level is not changing. It's only a few layers down at the C3 Industries, the minority owner level, that things are changing. And in terms of a representative for the employees, our CFO, Vilesh Shah, he's being nominated to the board of C3 Industries, and he'll be the trustee, which essentially is a benefit plan administrator. But again, that's beneath the licensed entity level. Nothing is changing at all in terms of the governance, operation, and management of any of the stores.
Okay, and so who nominated that guy to be like the trustee for the trust overall? If it's like owned by the employees, essentially, do they have any voice in the selection, or is it just part of the structure change that he's kind of in charge of it?
So they were nominated by the current, he was nominated by the current board of C3 Industries.
Okay. So then this is something that only pays out upon separation from the company. There's no like quarterly bonus share or anything like that while they're still actively employed.
Generally speaking, yes, that's correct.
Why do you say generally speaking? Is that something that could potentially change in the future?
No, so I think there are ways to structure these that are way above my pay grade. This is ERISA lawyers deal with this. They're a very narrow subset of tax specialists. And I say that not to be coy, just that it's very complicated. I know that there are manners of structuring this so you could have some kind of profit sharing. I think the reality for us as a cannabis company is part of the reason we're doing this is there isn't a ton of profit to be shared because of the way that we're taxed. We're in a very competitive industry. There's price compression in Massachusetts and elsewhere, and we have very high overhead and can't deduct business expenses. So from the company's perspective, one of the primary reasons to do this is we derive substantial tax benefits. So as we pay off the current investors over time, the value of the company increases, and therefore so does any shares owned on for the benefit of any employees. But the last thing I'd add to that, so we've been in business since, I want to say 2017 as a C corporation. Our parent company, every cent that we make, we reinvest into the business. The whole point of this, we want to grow and scale a very large business and exit. This is kind of like an interim exit. So periodic distributions of cash flow have never been a feature of this business, and I don't expect that to change. I think every cent we make, we're reinvesting into the business to keep growing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Just remind me how many, I'm sorry, Sonal, just remind me how many employees you have?
As of today, we have around 940. So we've got 4 stores to open in Kentucky still, another one in Connecticut, and one in Michigan that is imminently opening. That's going to add to that number, so it'll be north of 1,000. But
Okay.
that's where we're at today.
Sorry, my apologies for speaking when Commissioner Gandhi's hand was up.
No, actually, you asked one of the questions I had, so thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. The number of employees, and it looks like you have, you're in a variety of different states. My question is around what happens. We've seen, varying degrees of success for businesses that are in this industry. And the question I have is, worst case scenario, what happens if you have to close down these locations and either terminate or lay off employees? And, I get the kind of the obvious answer, but I'd like to hear how you are thinking about ensuring that the businesses, remain successful, and what, how are you thinking about ensuring that the folks who are, benefiting from this ESOP per your explanation, could also have some protections when, shouldn't say when, if there are any instances where the business has to, change direction or consolidate into different locations.
Sure. So, I would just start by saying, I think the plan to stay in business and keep growing is really separate from the ESOP. We are a best-in-class operator. We are well capitalized. The people in the executive team are former Big Law, Wall Street, longtime retail operators. Our CRO was at Nike for 20 years. So, we have a lot of experience building and scaling the businesses. I think that's how we continue to win in operations. These stores, I know there's been difficulties in this market. These stores are thriving. We have no intention of going out of business. We want to continue to improve these stores. So I think, like any company, if the company's in trouble and the employees depart, that's an unfortunate reality of business. But with the ESOP, they'll have the benefit of, to the extent their benefits have vested, then they'll leave and they will have that retirement benefit that has already vested, in addition to any severance or other benefits that they may be entitled to upon separation.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Right, we'll move on to public testimony. Commissioner Soto, sorry.
Sorry, I was having trouble turning my camera on. Yeah, I just I think dovetail a little bit on some of the prior questions, and apologies if this is inarticulate, but ultimately, if the concept is like a 401 or a 40, I'm thinking of like a 403 or something, similar, would there be any incentive or safeguards, I guess, against the manager of the account from, like, depressing sort of like how much it could grow as a potential kind of like long-term strategy, right? And I'm thinking of this honestly. I'm thinking of it from the lens of like my last meeting with my financial advisor, right? And we sat down and talked about how am I splitting up my 403b? How conservative or how loose do we want to get with it, given the market right now, given the uncertainty and X, Y, and Z? And so if there's someone who's making that decision for the employees fund, are they potentially depressing the amount of gains that it could grow over a short amount of time because of maybe some instability or concern around the overall business environment? So, I hope that sort of makes sense. But I just whose fingers are on the lever to make sure that growth is maintained. And yet, I know you said that it's highly regulated, and so would there be safeguards in place to say, hey, you can't do that, similar to like a tips issue where folks discovered that tips were being pooled in illegal ways, right, and going not to the employees, right? So, anyways, just what safeguards might there be to prevent that?
Sure. So starting with, you did mention it's heavily regulated. So an ESOP is subject to really strict regulations by the IRS, by the Department of Labor. We have to be audited every year by the IRS. We have to submit a valuation that's subject to intense scrutiny by the Department of Labor and the IRS to hold us accountable for this representing the fair value. So if someone would try to game this, in addition to violating fiduciary duties that they have to the employee beneficiaries, you're subject to criminal liability and serious penalties with the IRS and other regulatory agencies that I spend every day trying to avoid as the head of our compliance and legal.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? All right, we'll move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives. And if not, is there anyone that would like to provide testimony on this matter? All right, seeing no one, the board will take all three matters under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move to our new license applications. The first applicant we have is Roster Roots LLC, doing business as Roster Roots. The proposed license premise is 21 Broad Street, downtown. The license type is for a product manufacturer license, and the proposed hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. This is a non-equity applicant. They filed the application on August 12th, 2025, and they held their community meeting on December 9th, 2025. There is a buffer zone conflict with another marijuana establishment. This applicant is currently open and operating as a marijuana retailer at this location since February of 2025. So they're just looking to add the product manufacturing license to this location. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Fernando Bent-Mullings, I'm the owner, along with my wife, Hillary.
Okay.
We should have two other people, Greg.
Great.
Yes, Tyrone Gomes.
And Ty, yes.
All right, perfect. All right, you guys have 10 minutes. You may share your screen and begin your presentation.
So before we get started, I was going to present, but I took my son on I was chaperoned on Friday and I got sick. So Greg's going to take over the honors and I'm sure we'll do a great presentation. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Frank. Can everyone see our screen here? All right, not hearing any objections. So hello, everybody. Welcome to our presentation for product manufacturing license application at 21 Broad Street. Let's go ahead and dive in. So first, working through today's agenda, we're going to do an overview of what we're proposing, dive into the details of a description of our proposed activities, talk through the community feedback, public support, and administrative steps we've already completed. Quickly stop by for a location detail, talk about our very minimal parking and traffic impact, Then open it up for questions. We've also included quite a few slides of additional information, which we may, pop into in the question period if that's helpful for any of the commissioners or member of the public. So an overview, again, we are currently operating out of this building with a retail dispensary. We actually are a social equity applicant for the proposed product manufacturing. These activities would only take place on the 4th floor of the building, and broadly is repackaging flower, creating pre-rolls, and some creative product combinations I'll dive into in a second. I think it's very important to emphasize we have no plans currently or in the future to have any explosive chemicals nor pressurized systems on site whatsoever. So let's talk about some of those details of the proposed activities. The first is the cannabis flower repackaging. This is taking bulk cannabis and putting it into easily sellable amounts with all of the required labeling, warnings, and depictions. The next area is basically doing the same thing, but putting it into a pre-roll, like a joint, right? And finally, the third category here is making infused pre-rolls. And we also want to explore some novel product ideas we have. We need to have this license in order to try those out, but it would just be different versions of infusions, thinking stuff along the lines of what if we try 2 different, concentrates to mix in with our flower, stuff along those lines. So that's what we would like to do when we are launching the operation. We also have some ideas for future development, which we do not plan to have at launch. The first one is cold water hash production. This can be accomplished with a simple machine or even less so with a bucket and a series of, screen bags and, manipulating it in those large buckets with ice. Next is vaporizer device filling. Just to be clear, we don't plan to create any oils here, but purchase already created oils and fill them. Again, just like with the cold water hash, we're not even sure we're going to do this, but we want to have the ability with this license. And that final area that fits into that as well is rosin press extracts. This is a pretty simple device that sits on top of a table. I imagine most members who are here are aware of a rosin press, but happy to answer questions about any of our current or future plans. Just want to emphasize again, any of these future plans, if we do go into them, will never be closed loop extraction. We're never going to have potentially explosive equipment on site. Okay, let's talk about where we've been so far. So the 4th floor, we're proposing having all of these activities, has already been constructed and completely built out. ISD has taken us all the way through the change of occupancy process. So I know at BCB, it's very typical that we'd be having conversations around appeals through them and stuff like that. Wasn't the case here. We've already completed all of our ISD interactions. We've also already presented to the WRF Council. We have a letter of support, which does mention their unanimous support for us. We're going to see that on the next page here. Also on that next page is Ms. Zapata, our Boston City Councilor for District 1's letter of support, which we're pretty proud of being able to obtain. And we finally want to mention again, in this building, we've been operating since last February, getting consistent community support and encouragement. And I think that's really evidenced by these letters. So I'm not going to, bore everybody by reading these the whole time. But on the left, we have the WRF District Council one. And on the right, we have our Boston City Councilor one. Want to point out right out of the gate, our Boston City Councilor says they're writing in support. I think quite a few people on this call are aware that that's not often something we get out of a city councilor. So again, we're pretty proud of it. And we think it speaks to how much we've really been involved in the community and that, really want to be part of this, place we're in. Let's talk about that place. So it's this building. If you know that street, you're probably aware that there's a little sort of carve out that
I think Greg froze.
Yeah, I was looking like, was that me that froze? Yeah, he definitely.
So the slide that we're looking at, that is our building. It was the market before it became Roster Roots. The picture is where the manufacturing would be. It would just be on the 4th floor. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to change to the next slide. I'm sure Greg realized that he froze and hopping
it is
back
the bottom
on.
floor that the dispensary is.
Oh, there he is. Greg, can you hear us?
Oh,
Oh, we lost him.
oh, he's back now.
Well, that was fun. Well, let me get back into that presentation. I have no idea what happened. Okay, can we see that again?
Yeah.
Greg, you were explaining the fourth floor of the facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Um,
were just on the fourth floor, is all we're proposing to add. Again, the first floor of this building is an active dispensary in there. Moving along to our parking and traffic impact, we think it will be very minimal because it is our current employees that we'll generally be hiring from who are already in the building. Many of them use public transportation to get here already. And for those who drive, there is paid parking in the adjacent building. The only other in-keys traffic will be the occasional pickup from another dispensary or delivery. But because this is a self-contained space with just a few employees, mostly just repackaging cannabis and rolling pre-rolls, we're anticipating, essentially zero increased traffic or parking impact. And at that point, we're up to questions, and I got a lot of slides after this for any additional information.
Thank you. We will begin with questions, comments from the board, starting with Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you. My question's about the last part of your presentation, the deliveries. You said occasional deliveries. Can you quantify that a little bit more? And I'm curious what the impacts are going to be at this location with trucks and pickup delivery and
So we already get deliveries because we're just a dispensary right now. So we don't see that there would be any addition to any kind of cluster that happens. We haven't had any issues in the year that we've been there. We're able to schedule our deliveries out. It'll probably be even easier to do it when we're the ones sending it out. So we don't see any issues with that. Directly in front of our space, our building, there are commercial spaces where UPS, FedEx trucks, and where our deliveries tend to park. So there's never an issue of like somebody having to double park or anything like that. Knock on wood.
okay. That was my concern. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have questions? Commissioner Smith?
Thanks, Jasmine. One question. So you said your current employees are going to be the ones doing this. Are you thinking of adding any more?
I would love to need to add more employees because that just means that we're busier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to kind of speak to the presentation before, I would love to one day have 900 employees, but I think everything starts small and we kind of grow from there. There's a reason why we're coming in front of the board now for manufacturing versus last year, where I very much think of this business as like kids and trying to do one thing at a time and not necessarily kind of rush, where I would love to be so busy that we're like, hey, we need to bring on more people, but just want to do one thing at a time.
So no, you're not adding any more employees. How about like security? Are you adding any layers of security to this?
Where we don't see needing to add any layers of security from the security that we already have, with the amount of cameras that we have in the building, with the amount of notifications through the security company that we do have. If someone pulls on a door late night, I get a notification. So we don't see any issues in the future with manufacturing. That I believe it was the first or second slide Greg showed where we're asking for the hours of I forget what the extent was, but we definitely don't plan on being there really late doing manufacturing or being there really early. It's just more so to have that option, so we can kind of find our groove of what makes the most sense, not just with staff, but with deliveries going out where we might find that like you can get great street parking before 8 o'clock in the morning there. So if it's something where it makes more sense to have deliveries go out from us really early, then we'd do so, or vice versa, especially on the weekend and later in the day or anything like that. So no, we don't see any need for any additional security measures.
But on screen, you have an enhanced security plan. Is that?
Well, I think our security plan is I think that slide was kind of speaking to what we currently have, where I think we have 32 cameras throughout the building where I can see down the street if there's any issues. Uh, so I think that's what that speaks to.
So this is what exists now, basically.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much.
If I may also add some context to that.
Please.
So Commissioner Smith, the reason why there isn't any need for additional security is because when Rasta Roots designed the facility initially, it already was factoring product manufacturing on this level. So it took all the precautions from day one. So access ID badges, which is a requirement from the CCC, cameras covering every square foot of the facility. All of this stuff was taken into consideration before we actually went through the process of applying on the product manufacturing side. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that slide more so speaks to people that aren't on the board and maybe have not. Maybe they just got they're new to the area and saw that we're doing something just to kind of speak to the security of it, where if they had any concerns of what we want to potentially do next, understanding that we've had it covered this entire time.
And everyone, my apologies. I checked my text that I got kicked off the second time, and we are having outages in our area. So I'm now on cellular, and hopefully you will not lose me again.
No worries, Greg.
Commissioner Smith, you all set.
All set. Thank you, Jasmine.
Commissioner Kinsler?
Thank you, Jasmine. How many employees do you currently have?
12 total.
How many of them are full-time and how many are part-time?
Full-time, I think it's 8 and 4 part-time.
Okay,
but
so
like they're considered part-time, but there's moments where they get 40 hours a week, so it all depends. But
so
on our records, they're down as part-time.
Yeah. With these added tasks, if you're not immediately hiring new staff, do you imagine that there will at least be more hours available to the part-timers because there's all this more work to be done?
We do see that. I also plan on spending more time in the manufacturing side and figuring out scheduling with bringing new people on. It's for me, I didn't want to start hiring people before we needed to, especially if it's something that I have permission to do something. I would much rather have the green light to move forward with something and then realize, hey, we need more help versus the other side of that coin of hiring staff and then realizing that we don't actually need them and then having people in an awkward situation financially.
Okay. So will the operating or the manufacturing operations, will it be kind of like operating under the same hours as the retail dispensary, or will it be a more limited time frame that's actively going on?
It would probably be more of a limited time. Like we said in the initial slide of just being able to have that time frame where we can figure out what makes the most sense. I know when we're typically slower, which days we're slower, and being able to take advantage of that slow time to spend more energy on the manufacturing side is what the plan is.
And do you imagine that some of your workers would then just be dedicated to either full-time working just in the manufacturing room or spending full shifts working just in the manufacturing room, or will people have to kind of bounce back and forth between the retail and the manufacturing a lot?
I think it's going to be kind of like how we did with our retail, where it's I don't want to put anybody that we have already working for us in a situation where now they don't like to work for us, where it's more testing the waters, where somebody might find that they love packaging and might say, hey, can I just spend more of my time doing that, and kind of evolving that way. That's kind of how I've always seen Rust Roost, just as a company in general, of having people in positions that they actually want to be in versus forcing them into something and then having to find somebody to come do that job after they leave because their roles change. So we don't want to disturb the vibe that we already have amongst our staff when it comes to duties and what they're doing.
Okay, and will there be any difference in pay rate for people that are doing the manufacturing work versus people working in the on the retail side?
That part I haven't really talked that part over yet. Still trying to figure that out, where if it's someone that's part-time and I have them coming in to do pre-rolls on a day that they're not necessarily there, we pay pretty well. I think we're in the top 10% when it comes in the state hourly for our bud tenders. So I don't know what the pay rate going is for packaging, but I'm pretty sure that we'd be up there regardless. So I don't see a need to do a pay increase.
Okay. All right. No further questions for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gandhi, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the really thorough presentation. I think I know the answer to this question, but I have two questions. The first one is, you don't propose to have any kind of additional HVAC or any kind of other modifications of the building to accommodate this manufacturing?
Nothing additional, no. We just, with going through ISD, they saw the word manufacturing, and their all the flags went up there, and had to kind of walk them through what manufacturing means in a lot of cases when it comes to cannabis. So we were okayed by the fire department through the electrician and all that stuff. They understood what we were going to be presenting to the commission today, and gave us a thumbs up without any pushback.
No, thank you. The second question goes around, ensuring that the businesses that have licenses, remain successful, so we don't have empty storefronts around our city. Would this be a lease amendment for additional square footage for your business? So are you amending your lease to add more square footage?
I don't know if I understand the.
So,
The lease is already for the entire building, floors 1 through 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
So you're not adding to your lease costs.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's incredibly helpful. So it's a capital cost for the equipment that goes onto the 4th floor.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe so, yes.
That's incredibly good. Then the reason I ask this question is, and look, I don't want to get into the business side of things, but when you have additional costs, it's helpful to know you don't have additional lease costs, but you will have you'll have capital costs that are coming up and how those are absorbed, and then ensuring that you've got the revenue that justifies the capital costs. I think is important, and just want to make sure that that's been thought through. Just to ensure that the business, stays where it is, and we again don't have empty storefronts in our city. So, I guess it's a general question to ensure that you've kind of done that math, which I'm sure you have. But I just kind of want to hear your thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, so we, just to kind of add to that, for one, first, I appreciate making sure that we've kind of thought about that before kind of moving forward, that question. What we also see with the manufacturing is helping with the costs, where it's another stream of revenue. We're lucky to have great landlords, and when we told them we were thinking about doing manufacturing years ago, that was the first thing they said was, yeah, having multiple streams of revenue coming in can kind of help feed the other. So when you have slow times, you can kind of rely on one part of the business a little more so and a little less stressful. So yes.
Also add that all of the future plans we'll explore, you might notice, are the things that require expensive pieces of equipment. All of the launch plans are ones that are very minimal. A shake box, to make pre-rolls is a couple $100.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto?
Thanks, Jasmine, and thank you for the great presentation. It hit on many of the points that I normally touch on. So I really just want to uplift the support that you received. I think, would love to see more letters like that in presentations because I really do think it reflects the support of the community. But to get it from the elected official as well as the neighborhood association really shows a grassroots level of support, and I appreciate that. Just makes things a lot easier. I do have a question, and part of my ignorance, maybe it might just be for my own edification, but when you mentioned the potential for new types of products or combinations of things, at what level would that need to be measured or observed before it could by like a scientist, someone from the state, right, to ensure that's safe and that it's all reading the correct readings before it actually went to market, right? So that we avoid something hitting the street at the fourth floor that could have been avoided, right?
Yeah, a lot of the things we'll be trying just to see if it sort of works are, again, it's going to still look like an infused pre-roll, right? But if you do something like, let's say, sativa concentrate at the beginning and indica concentrate at the back, what is that like? Any product we created would be going through the typical third-party testing process. And we already actually maintain a great relationship with the CCC, and anything that we ended up coming out with that was particularly out there, we would much rather have their engagement and approval before we spent the money to try to mass market it. And really, what we're saying there is that we've got some cool ideas for, stuff like I mentioned with the different kinds of pre-roll, infused pre-roll. Is it going to work? We don't know. Is anybody going to want to buy it? We don't know. And we'd certainly want everyone to feel comfortable before we made a large investment in having a scaled novel product.
But it would require some level of approvals before that could happen. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I mean, an infused pre-roll is already certainly approved, right?
And then the third-party tester has to make sure that it's safe, essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess that enough, I guess, would be the approval. I guess I'm thinking of like something that says yes, it's okay to sell that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would be tested for, so many things: heavy metals, pesticides. Those tests have certainly flagged in the past. We've never made a product, but I've seen in other places that testing labs for a new place will say, hey, it passed the testing, but your pre-roll keeps breaking, right? So I don't know if that's a good idea to reach market. So yeah, we would certainly have that third-party scrutiny of anything before it came to market.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I got. Thanks, Jasmine.
You're welcome. Any other additional questions from the board?
Yeah, I had a few more that came to mind, Jasmine. Thank you. So this kind of popped to my mind after Commissioner Gandhi's question. So you said that you don't plan on making any changes to the HVAC and ventilation system that you have in the packing room right now. So what do you have that's there currently? Is it just like the HVAC system that was already in place, or had you already fitted it out so that it could be, a proper ventilation system for a cannabis manufacturing facility?
So when we did construction on the building, we did a complete renovation of everything. So we temperature controlled rooms. There's no HVAC system from before we went in. And when we did all of the construction, like we said, with not only the appearance of the fourth floor for manufacturing, all the equipment that was put in there was always put in with the consensus of like, okay, we're going to eventually apply for manufacturing, and to help hopefully speed up that process, we won't have to do any kind of construction. So with ISD, when like I was saying, with the scary word of manufacturing to them, is they assumed that I had to do construction and we had to bring in all these different pieces of equipment where we don't necessarily need to, because of what we're doing already the building's already set up and they already had the blueprints and everything from when we went through the process for the retail. So they were able to just kind of go through their our old file with ISD and see that everything was done, where we were one of the rare cases that I know of that we didn't get a denial from ISD. We got approval, where the steps to get to having our neighborhood services meeting, we had to get a disapproval letter from ISD saying that the building wasn't fitted correctly. But we did do all that stuff.
I
I
am.
don't know how else to go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I was trying to search for the whole, to show you how nice it is. But I did first come across that it was the estimated cost of $146,000 system. I don't know what a lot of this stuff means, but I'm happy to read to you about our split units and exhaust fans and anything that would be helpful, Commissioner.
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't know the correct terminology for all the stuff that we have put in, but I know that we fitted the building out to be able to have manufacturing and not have to worry about outside smells, where we haven't had any complaints from what we have currently in the building. I don't see us doing anything in our space that would somehow now have smell outside or any kind of issues like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you could provide some of that information to us that we could review it, or any like information you got from the ISD, I think it'd be interesting to take a look at that. It mentioned in the presentation that you're primarily, like early on, going to be focusing on hand-rolled, pre-rolled joints. Do you have any plans to put in like a Mobius machine or other automated pre-roll machines?
For me right now, I just kind of want to be able to start to do hand roll stuff. The idea of buying machines and dragging it up the fourth floor before even knowing if people are even wanting our product, I think that would be a bold move to spend money on something and assume that our pre-roll is going to do really well, especially in a market that has tons of pre-rolls. So I don't have any intentions of doing that right now. I like to add to the hopefully needing more employees. Hopefully we get so busy with our products that we do need to buy a machine and kind of go forward that way. But as of right now, that's not the plan.
Okay, and do you have plans to have some sort of like face mask or respirators and fit tests as an option to your workers?
I think there was a slide in there, Greg, that had all. I don't know if you're able to access your
Should be able
thing,
to, yeah, give me a
but
minute.
it spoke to the safety precautions where um, we wouldn't be skipping any corners and making sure that everything is regulated, is done the way that it should be. Greg tries to pull that slide up. I know I saw one.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah,
yeah, and we
no,
can
go ahead,
send
go
that
ahead.
along to, I apologize again for my internet service provider having these issues. It is slide 18 in what we sent previously. But we, plan to have full PPE suite. Certainly that includes, fit tests, availability of respirators. Everyone will be wearing hair and beard masks, or nets, excuse me, and gloves will be required. And those details are in our SOPs already.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the level of thought that you put into it. I think the light bulb just kind of went off on my head when Commissioner Gandhi was asking her questions, because I mean, obviously we've heard a lot about some of the safety concerns with the cannabis production facilities, and what we've seen is that especially like even in the big facilities that do cultivation and manufacturing and processing, a lot of times it's the room where pre-rolls are made that we see the most complaints and some of the most risks to workers and dangerous incidences. So I think definitely just the more level of care to take those preventative measures early on, it's really going to put workers in the best spot. So I appreciate the level of intention that you've put into this already.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? All right, we'll move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representative.
Good morning, Commissioners. Siggy Johnson with the Office of Neighborhood Services. This applicant has completed the community process. Our office hosted an abutters meeting on the 9th of December, at which a number of questions were raised regarding the proposal. A direct abutter in the adjoining building had a number of questions about fire suppression, possible noxious odors, possible noise. The applicants made a good faith attempt to answer all of those questions. The applicants have also met with the Wharf District Council, which is in support of this application. With that background, our office defers judgment to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Siggy. Samantha, you have your hand raised.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Samantha. I'm on behalf of Councilor Coletta Zapata's office, just to express our support for this project.
Thank you. Are there anyone else that would like to provide testimony regarding this matter? All right, seeing no one, the board will take this matter under advisement.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on to our final matter. The applicant is IMAD LLC. The proposed license premise is 24 School Street, downtown. The license type is a marijuana research facility license. The proposed hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday through Sunday. This is a non-equity applicant. They filed their application on September 9th, 2025, and they held their community meeting on November 20th, 2025. There's a buffer zone conflict with another marijuana establishment. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
I am Dr. Denise Valenti.
All right, Dr. Valenti, you have 10 minutes. You may begin.
First, thank you. We're quite excited being a pioneer in the research space. There is only one other license in the state of Massachusetts for research, and it involves product. We are the first applicant looking at the human behavioral and marijuana-related research on humans. A little bit about my background. First, I was trained as a clinical provider. I specialized in vision loss and rehabilitation. My experiences included working with the Indian Health Services and running a clinic for the indigent in Detroit, Michigan. Part of that work was specific to aging. I served as a consultant to General Motors, and we worked with vision loss as well as sensory impairment. Moving forward, I transitioned out of clinical care and started doing research in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and head injury. That began our first look at cannabis. We believe, although we haven't followed it up with any funded research, that cannabis is an excellent treatment for neurodegenerative processes such as Alzheimer's, such as Parkinson's, such as head injury. However, as part of that activity, we pivoted when we realized in our studies of marijuana and retina that we actually could develop a technology specific for driving impairment that was objective. Why is this needed? Well, there's nothing out there that can actually identify impairment with marijuana use other than the subjective observation of a law enforcement officer. While that is quite good, it can be fraught with problems. What is going on? Unlike for alcohol, there is no breathalyzer or standard field sobriety test. Unlike alcohol, cannabis is not related in the amount you have in your system to an impairment. You see here, you can actually have a very large amount of cannabis in your system and not be impaired. On the other hand, think of some of the other end with a small amount of cannabis, but if you're an older adult or you're an adult treating a disease, you may have the minimal amount of cannabis and you can be deadly on the road. IMAD is named in memory of my 15-year-old, in memory of Mark Alvin De Silva. He died because of somebody's irresponsible and selfish decision. And what added to this is I had to see and still hear of his murderer suffering zero consequences. We want to prevent incidents like that and incidents like you see here, where a family is mourning the loss of a loved one to a preventable crash. What do? Well, it's a very simple off-the-shelf technology. Pico Neo Gaming, you see them all over the place if you're in the world of gaming. What it does, though, it's very simple. It shows tiny striped squares in the peripheral vision. Participants simply press a button whenever they see the stripes. Marijuana users, at least up to an hour and a half, cannot see many of these stripes. We are seeking a research license. First, we began this process in 2018. For those of you that follow Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission, the whole process and evolving an industry is complicated. They did not define a research license until 2022. And that was an evolution process also because earlier commissioners had one vision, and as it advanced and they retired, newer commissioners had different visions on what research is. One thing is clear, though, there is an interest in research. Massachusetts, though, is one of the few states that does have $0 going to research. Other states actually had lines of percentage of taxes going into research. However, Massachusetts does have on board a research specialist that is part of the commission. There has been one research license granted, that is to Curaleaf. They are a multi-state, multi-country operator. They are currently have approval in Newton, Massachusetts, but they're seeking to relocate to the periphery. They are looking at more product research. In addition to a research license, anybody doing research under the supervision of the commission needs to take out permits for every research protocol they have. When that involves animals or humans, you actually have to have something what's called an institutional review board protocol approval to make sure it's safe for either the human or the animal under research. We have had IRB approved protocols for human research since 2018. We are already recognized nationally and internationally. The location we are proposing is very proud of the technology that is already on board. You can actually take a tour of some of the innovative technologies within the region. We are proud of our work. We are the only company that has been invited to give a pitch on technology at South by Southwest. That's an international meeting held in Austin, Texas. I have been a member of the American Public Health Association for now 44 years, and I was instrumental and participated in their development of cannabis policy, both for safety measures and also for medical treatment. We've had success at our federal grants. We received our first grant in 2018. We received another grant in 2022. There was a hiatus there where COVID and they had withdrawn all funds for marijuana-related research for a variety of reasons. However, we suffered probably the biggest setback we can possibly have last year. One of the key researchers who was instrumental in securing grants because of his background died suddenly at a very young age last January. We had to withdraw all our grants. So part of the reason, besides us being committed to collaborating with groups, and we think that's very important, so being part of the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission research community, we think is important, but we also would become eligible as a social equity owned business to some of those resources. We were declared a social equity owned business in 2018 by the Cannabis Control Commission. Well, what do we want to do? Well, we've always had shared workspace. Our proposed site is 24 School Street at Work Bar. The reason we can do this is we never have marijuana on site. We would not receive federal funds if we were handling or had anything to do with the dosing of marijuana. So I'll explain this a little bit later. And again, we would be the first group potentially to get a permit to do human research. Now, while there's no funding for it, Massachusetts marijuana laws actually require research in driving impairment. What do? Well, we do something called opportunistic dosing. This is not a good way to do research. I think it would be bad if we were doing medical treatments. But what happens is we see people when they're not high. We do extensive protocols, questionnaires to determine a little bit about their marijuana use. We draw blood and we take saliva samples. Then they tell us when and where they're going to get high. Usually it's in their home. We arranged Uber, Lyft, shared transportation to pick them up and bring them into the clinic, and then we return them home by that same mode of transportation. The location is quite conducive for our type of work. We're on the corner of Washington and School Street. We're already operating there. Let's make it clear. We don't need a license to do what we do. We want a license. We think it's important politically. We think it's important for the state. If you're not aware, the state is trying to have a federally funded resource center, a resource center on cannabis. There already exists one in California. I believe there's also one in Colorado. So this is important to advance the science in the state, to have anchor research groups or groups contributing and interested. This is the corner. Here's the entrance. Here is an image of the building inside itself. When we don't run participants, we use shared workspace. This is cost effective for us because we don't have that many people working for us unless we have grants. When we see subjects, we actually use conference rooms. Here's the layout of that particular site. We would have our primary site in Boston, but we would also, based on membership, be able to use sites elsewhere. And those sites include Quincy and Worcester. We do acknowledge that we probably have the proposal that has the densest population around where we're proposing. I downloaded it twice. We actually have 420 abutters, 420. We thought this was interesting. Now, for those of you that don't know, April 20th, 420 is the informal holiday for cannabis. We find, and we have experience with this, that this is actually an advantage. Our participants, the priority is their safety, their comfort, and their ease of accessing and being able to come in for research. We had a previous location at 25 Milk Street where we found it was popular with our volunteers because after they visited us, first of all, they had $100 in their pocket after participating. They could go out to the restaurants, go shopping. It also provided a greater level of safety. So unlike other groups, the dense population is really a positive for us. The other thing is our students, staff, and myself, we take public transportation in. This location is right across from a line. Our volunteers take public transportation. We do not, in general, have people drive in to participate. Those few that do, in the past, I probably can count, yes, I can count on one hand. It was because they weren't comfortable with shared Lyft and Uber. So we would give them funds to pay to drive in and park if that was appropriate. But again, when we have people driving, it's very unusual. Safety is a priority. This particular building has 24-hour security. It's supplied by Northeast Security. It's managed by Indira Frederico. She's pictured here. Access is by a pass. There is a security desk. You then go onto the elevator. When you get into the actual workspace during traditional hours, 9 to 5, that's hosted by a receptionist. So we do have a secure system that meets our needs. And again, because there are no products on board, that's not really an issue. When there are participants, or rather customers on site, we have a security system also. That is for everybody's safety. When we see someone, 2 staff members from the research meet them at the curb. This is whether they've arrived by public transportation or shared vehicle. There are 2 people with every participant at all times. Now, on occasion, that might not happen is if two people decide to come together. They still are escorted, but we may have a ratio of one-on-one, two staff, and the two people. The staff escort them to the street level and actually until they get into their Uber or Lyft. On occasion, we actually have them call us back the minute they've arrived at their home. We're not even closely comparable to retail. However, our site was chosen specifically for close proximity. Our first research project was on 25 Milk Street. We'd actually selected that site because at the time it was right across the street from a licensed but not yet operational medical, or yes, it was a medical marijuana facility. They never opened. However, we find that still an advantage in that we're going to be located near Pure Oasis, close proximity. And if this one, which is Curaleaf, ever opens, close proximity. This is an advantage to us. They are in close proximity to each other, so that would be up to them and the board whether or not that is a disadvantage. But we feel this close proximity is a very positive, particularly if down the road we receive grants that are medicinal in nature, and those are sometimes a more difficult product to obtain. Parallel businesses.
Denise, you are at your 10 minutes. I don't know if you want to just.
All right, we'll flash through because the next thing is just talk about what is close. One thing that is close in business and that we've experienced are criminal lawyers. They can have the same type of people, but what we found, criminal lawyers had a more disruptive client. For example, we have never had to pick up or clean up or defunk after our clients, even though we plan on that, but we have after some of the clients visiting neighbors. Another thing to point out, and then I'll just wind down, is 50% of our business visits participants are high. This is not in compliance, and we appreciate that with one of the regulations through the Boston Cannabis. We intentionally have 50% of our clients that are going to be impaired, but what we are very careful about is everybody's safety. So we acknowledge, we know we have people that are high on site. We never have anyone underage. We actually card for the older adults. And this is just images of our diversity. You can read more about that. This is our staff. This slide was not developed to demonstrate diversity. It was developed to actually talk about how we need diversity within participants. So again, it just naturally demonstrates what our existing diversity is. We track it. This is just talking a little bit more about our research and what we do. And as you go through this later, you can see what the result and products are. The products are science. These are examples of the research our company does. We have several publications and proposed publications. And our team. Thank you. This is just to explain this. We do real car closed road studies. That's not in downtown Boston. That's in Weymouth at a closed Air Force base. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We will begin with questions and comments from the board members. Excuse me, beginning with Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you. Very, very thorough presentation. First, let me just say I'm very sorry for your loss. I found your presentation very informative and helpful. I have no questions.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. One, doctor, how do you pick your subjects?
That and the success is failure depends on staff. I carefully select staff and interns based on their science background. However, I will not hire them if they don't have evidence of other activities of communication skills, because it is very difficult to hire a diversity of and types of cannabis users. So my staff make or break that. And what I look for in staff is, do they have experiences as bartenders, wait staff, previous cannabis dispensaries, a person that's been a lifeguard, those kind of things. So it's one-on-one recruitment. The place we had the most success in getting non-chronic users was actually at networking at CIC. There's a Thursday evening event where I send the interns to recruit and staff. Other places is we collaborate and get invited to cannabis events. It is not difficult for us to get chronic daily users. That isn't difficult. The other category is difficult. So
What's the other category?
No, that use less than twice a week.
Oh, okay.
Because we try to be visible, and it isn't always me doing the recruiting. I should make that clear. That doesn't always work. We attend events, we participate. One of the things we have learned is we at one point had a whole group of wonderful casual users. Again, that's a hard category. When it came time for them to do the real car closed road studies, all but one of them was doing a Veterans Administration clinic rotation. So we had to not use them. I could not risk them going out and testing positive for marijuana.
Yeah.
So again, these are all variables we work on.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Jasmine. No, I don't, but I do also want to echo my condolences on the passing of your son.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kinsley?
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. My condolences as well for your loss, like the other commissioners have said. You mentioned that you're already conducting this research. You have the federal funding.
We don't have currently federal funding.
Paused, but
we had to
before.
Withdraw, yeah.
And so you don't need a license through the Boston Board and the CCC, but you're doing it for like political and kind of messaging reasons. Is there any other like use that having this license would provide to you that would help kind of make the whole process a lot easier?
Well, I think being part of an organization, as the potential laws change, it'll be easier if as groups you're collectively putting your brain together. Again, it took a while for NIH to accept opportunistic dosing. Again, these are evolutions that I didn't cause, that is collective groups. And so I want the commission to succeed in getting funding for a center of excellence. And so again, being able to talk about groups in existence that are part of the commission will be helpful. And Curaleaf, because they're really not in the federal funding venue, isn't going to do it for them. I would love to see Harvard Research apply for a license. Again, right now, I think there's only 2 other groups even having an application. It's difficult too, though, because the definition is evolving. And as I applied, as Jasmine will tell you, we had to figure out, and it is very frustrating, we were in compliance, so we didn't get a rejection from zoning. But we kept getting, we don't know what to do with you. Why are you applying? So again, these are processes that as we go through it, it's going to be easier to put them and make it transparent so that other people are not hesitant. I can tell you the president of the clinical group nationally, he's based in Boston, has been watching me because he thinks he wants a license also. But again, Jasmine will tell you, I'm not. It's been interesting.
And so you mentioned that like opportunistic dosing isn't like the ideal way to do this research, but it's kind of
It's
like
okay
all
for
in
impairment to
plan.
drive. It's what a
Okay.
police officer encounters. It's not okay when I go to study Alzheimer's. It's not okay
Okay.
because you don't have control. However, for our next grants that we haven't gotten rejected yet, we propose collaboration. And we're really excited because there is a group not based in Boston, and we welcome any of you guys that presented, where we'll be working with them. And while we are not controlling what they purchase, having a collaboration will help narrow what they're purchasing. So again, it's a fine line for federal funding. But if they show up at the dispensary and the bud tender says, here, buy this, that's not me telling them. I had nothing to do with that.
So is like the end goal under the like the current kind of round of testing that you're doing to just like produce these VR headsets and like sell them or make them available for police departments to like use
Yes
in the
and no.
field?
Our customer, the first customer, is actually the judge in the courtroom that decides, is this evidence strong enough to accept? So we've done a very straightforward path that's very difficult, but we don't think that's going to happen until we have 4 to 5 solid publications. Once that happens, law enforcement are going to be more likely to purchase it. We are still standing. Our competitors are slowly dying because they did not have good products. For example, saliva companies are great. Breathalyzers cannot pick up edible use marijuana. One of them that got 30 million in revenue, their investors asked for the money back and they folded. They hadn't told their investor. So it's one of those slow and steady things. So we need federal money to do research. That's not a maybe. And we were doing really well until my colleague died.
Okay. And then so you talked about like obviously a lot of your staff uses public transportation, but most of the like the study subjects you kind of like arrange an
Well, their
Uber or
first
Lyft or
visit,
something.
they come in by public transportation. When we were on Milk Street, the vast majority, I can't even think of anybody that didn't, came by public transportation, but we didn't let them leave by public transportation. They had to leave by Uber Lyft. When we were in Quincy, it was mixed. I'd say 70% actually drove in or had somebody drive them, but they didn't drive in when they were high. We had Uber and Lyft. So their first visit. Now, there was street parking. Most of those people came from the South Shore. We struggled with that project because of our location with the non-chronic user. We didn't get as many people from Cambridge and Boston. The first project, that's pretty much a lot of what we had. So any research we have in the future will have 2 locations. Boston, for which we're seeking a license. Offline, we could talk about Quincy. But
So
again, we don't.
what are the 2 visits that they make? Like the first one is just like a baseline and the second
Where
is
they're
while
not
they're under the
high,
influence?
they're
Okay.
told no use for 48 hours. They come in, we take saliva, so we know immediately if there's cannabis. If there's cannabis during that visit, we don't see them a second time. They're considered unreliable. On the other hand, depends on who they are, because you could test positive and even not used in 48 hours if you're a heavy chronic user. So we will have looked at their intake survey. If they're a chronic heavy user, we'll draw blood. Well, we draw blood anyway, but we don't know the blood immediately. So once we've drawn blood, before they reschedule them, we look at the blood. A chronic heavy user will have a lot of what's called inactive THC. Your system can only handle so much inactive and convert it. So if their numbers match that we think they didn't use for 48 hours, we'll still enroll them, even if they tested positive with our saliva. So, but then the next visit, they're told to use use products they normally use. It's a safety thing. We don't want them trying unusual things. So, and then we pick them up by Uber Lyft. We see them. We draw blood again. We do saliva again to make sure there aren't any other drugs on board. And then we send them home by Uber Lyft.
Do you have a sense of like the average time it usually is between like when they consume it and when you're actually conducting the tests?
Yes, we do. And that's why Quincy wasn't ideal either. Our first set of data, we were actually on site in Colorado. So all those people were within 10, 15 minutes. So their data with our technology is extreme impairment. However, the ones in our second project, which was when we were at CIC Milk Street, on average, it took them about 15 to 20 minutes to get there. So they were impaired. In Quincy, we on occasion had our Cambridge clients go through 2 traffic jams. So we had some of those that were 45 minutes. We're seeing that the impairment that we measure is dissipating around 45 minutes.
Okay.
But again, we don't know precisely. And there are protocols. That team in Denver, they actually have the person go on Zoom, which I think is interesting. I don't think my IRB would approve that, even though they're just parked outside. So again, that was a university IRB. My IRB is a private company, and it's really tough to get these protocols approved in any manner.
And then if you're able to move beyond opportunistic dosing and do it like in partnership with some of the dispensaries, then you might be able to do like immediately after consumption.
Maybe. No, it depends. It depends on location and what we're doing. When we did Real Car Closed Road, they arrived by Uber Lyft, but they weren't high. We tested them when they weren't high. Then there was this magic tent. They had brought their own product and they got high. And then we were seeing them, because of the way it was set up, we were seeing them at about 15, 20 minutes. We weren't seeing them immediately. So now we did learn something that I should have known. First of all, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. What do you guys want to know about weed? Growing in the 60s and 70s. We should have controlled for blunts for our work. Nicotine influences your retina. So it wasn't until then I'm like, oh, how could you not have thought of that? It's just, you don't think of everything. So we're going back, and we did, fortunately, based on their history, we know which ones are using blunts. So it was easy. There weren't that many. But then we started learning the definition of blunt. Because there are products now, like Snoop Dogg sells a blunt wrapper that is not nicotine. And he's calling them blunts. All right. Any other questions? Sorry.
I have a lot more questions I could ask, but I think in the interest of saving time, I'll let it move on to the other commissioners.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I call it marijuana when it's recreation and cannabis when it's medicinal. As a kid growing up in a inner city community, if I had used the word cannabis, I wouldn't be here to talk to you today.
Commissioner Gandhi, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. First of all, I add my condolences for the loss of your son and also for your colleague, Mark. I'd heard about Mark as well, so I offer my condolences on both those losses. My question is a little bit, it has to do with what you said earlier in response to Commissioner Kensley's question. And it's more, I know you kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and there's a gray zone, but I guess I question jurisdiction and setting precedent for a license application like this, especially given, given your comments about others are kind of watching. I'm just kind of curious and would seek guidance on what the jurisdiction is of the BCB and also kind of what this means for setting precedent. If I may finish, I appreciate and respect very much your research and what you're trying to do. So this isn't any kind of commentary on that. I'm just curious about jurisdiction and precedent.
I can briefly touch on that. Because she is applying for a marijuana research license with the state, she needs a host community agreement, which is this process. So even though, as she said, she's doing her study and they don't need a license for what they're doing, she's seeking a license with the state. And this is one of the requirements of that process. But it is, like you said, it's a bit confusing as far as like, she doesn't really need it, but she needs it.
And what is actually a research license, like I said, was very solid with the first set of commissioners, but it's kind of evolving, meaning the cannabis control commissioners and Chair Hoffman and some of the people. But as the commission has changed, that's why there was delay in actually issuing any licenses.
Yeah, and also I would compare it to the one, I believe we saw him last week, Josh's One Stop, who sells, I think it's CBD or something. And currently that's like a gray area and there's no license for it. But with the regulations changing, he will need a license. So I kind of feel like this Dr. Denise is trying to like cover her bases. So later on, if this does become part of the regulations, she's already up and running. She doesn't have to do this.
We do. Jack had asked about facilities. When Dr. Pomplin was alive and we had potentially viable grant funding coming in, our shared office space was going to be right across from UMass Boston, a beautiful space, Venture Lane. It's shared office also. It's also on public transportation, but the reason we had looked at that was because they had hood space. So part of your shared office space is you developed your contract with them and your agreements, we could grow and be in the same spot. We saw if marijuana changed scheduling, Schedule 3, we would come back and seek amendments to how we're doing things with whatever license we had, because we would change location, we would change procedures, and have people smoke under the hoods. But again, that's not going to happen for at least 3 years, if at all.
Super helpful. Thank you, Dr. Valenti and also Jasmine. That's incredibly helpful.
Commissioner Soto, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Jasmine. Yeah, just one question. If the focus, because it's a research kind of writ large, it appears like in the way that it's written. If the focus of this research were to change in 3 years because of some rapid shift in the market and someone went to market and it's already picked up everywhere and everybody's using it. And, there's an opportunity now to really focus on Alzheimer's. Does there, I imagine it's another round with the IRB. And then if there's a material shift in the work, does it have to come back? Is there another process to then approve? And then a part B to that is, if we're looking at this as from a license perspective, are we also considering the local community quote unquote impact, or is there any sort of light on that? And so maybe that question's for Jasmine, I'm not sure, but those are the kind of two things that have been rattling around my head.
Well, in answer to the focus, if you look, I went through it very quickly, the type of research we do. We have unfunded research, and one of the real fun pieces we do is we did marijuana and smell. So we would, for any change in focus, we would get another IRB. So we have an IRB for smell and marijuana. We have an IRB for the technology we're developing. So if we wanted to do anything with Alzheimer's, we would have to write another IRB. One of the things we are able to do with our existing IRB is we can look at schizophrenia. So just the way our IRB is set up. We would have to come back before this board, though, if we changed how we used cannabis. Like if we were choosing to control the cannabis and bring it on site, that would be a completely different license procedure. We'd have to ask for that. But right now, almost all the research we would do, I can't imagine why we wouldn't. It would be done off-site. So even if we get to say what the product is, that would still be done off-site.
Yes, and to answer your question, Commissioner, like she said, this is ever evolving regulations. I'm sure if they add something additional to the marijuana research license, we would have her come back and present it, or we will seek guidance from the state as far as, okay, this person already has this license type, a bunch of things change, like how do we handle the new regulations surrounding that license type? So it's ever evolving.
Yeah, and again, we have approval for the vision and the olfaction. Olfaction was fascinating in that cannabis actually increases your ability to smell, but decreases your sensitivity to similar smells. The other thing we're trying to get funding for, cannabis probably was protective against COVID. But when we did our questionnaire, we didn't do it as well. So we need to redo some of what we looked at.
Fascinating.
Yeah, pretty cool. And you need diversity when you look at smell, because culture and ethnicity, it was fascinating when it comes to your taste and smell.
Oh, I mean, just in my own house, between my wife and I, we can disagree on the smell of almost anything.
And this is while they were high, remember. But we did determine a lot of your history and knowledge of smells was based on your drinking history. For example, our young adults did not recognize amaretto almond. But some of our adults didn't recognize, older adults didn't recognize lime. So while they were high, we all decided it's based on what was popular drinks at the time you came of age.
All right. Any other additional questions from the board? All right, we'll move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representative.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Siggy Johnson with the Office of Neighborhood Services. Our office hosted an abutters meeting on Thursday, November 20th, at which no concerns were raised. The Downtown Boston Business Association is aware of this application. They've met with the applicant and they are supportive of the application. With that background, our office defers judgment to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley, Council Flynn's office.
Hi, my name is Ashley from Councilor Flynn's office. IMAT has completed the community process with an abutters meeting on November 20th and met with the leadership at the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association and the Downtown Boston Alliance. Both organizations have expressed their support for the proposal based on the condition that there are no marijuana and no marijuana products on site, no sale of product on site, and strictly doing research at this location. Based on the agreed conditions above, Councilor Flynn would like to go on record in support. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony?
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Doug Meyer, Downtown Boston Alliance. As folks have mentioned, we were very pleased to go on record in support of this with the support letter we furnished to the BCB prior. It was very nice to see Denise shared that slide with the innovation trail, wayfinding marker right outside there in Irish Family Memorial Plaza. It reinforces that this is a very appropriate use intended for our district, given there's so much innovation happening all the time in the DBA area, and that IMAD is so innovative in its own right. So again, for those reasons, we are pleased to offer our support.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony? All right, seeing no one, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So
And if anybody has any additional questions, because it is a fun line of research. Jack's laughing. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were all the matters before the board today. The board's voting meeting will take place next Wednesday, February 18th at 1 p.m. Again, the record will be kept open until Monday, February 16th at 5 p.m. Thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of your day.
Jasmine.
Yes.
Monday's a holiday, the 16th, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
Monday's President's Day.
All right, so thank you for that. So Tuesday, February 17th, the record will be open until 5 o'clock, and then the board's voting meeting will take place Wednesday, the 18th at 1 p.m. Thank you, Commissioner.